tunasema kanyaga 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 kanyaga.
In the fight against corruption, there are a number of elements that are necessary for a successful anti-corruption campaign. Creating institutional support for the campaign is one of these critical elements. Getting the message across to the masses that corruption is evil and must be resisted at all times, without preparing the institutions and public officials who run them on how to receive and act on complaints of corruption, is like conducting a massive advertising campaign for a particular product before the product is freely available on all market shelves. Therefore, in an era of limited resources in Kenya, it is imperative to maximize donor and indeed government resources that are used to fight corruption. It is now necessary to accompany the message that corruption is bad, immoral, is far more than the simple bribe paid, and most importantly, it affects the economy and growth of our country. To prevent corruption, there must also be strong institutions to accept complaints and act on them. It is now accepted by everyone that political will is a necessary component for creating institutional space.
Corruption is evil, and it debases and degrades a nation. Therefore, we must all agree together that corruption must go. My government in this respect will do everything it can to aid the fight against corruption, but we need to work as a team. Let us all embrace integrity. It is your duty and mine to end this vice.
Under the chairmanship of Archbishop Eliud Wabukala, the National Anti-Corruption Campaign Steering Committee, whose mandate amongst others is to sensitize and encourage the public to participate in the fight against corruption, has undertaken nationwide public education, sensitization and awareness creation campaigns that are aimed at affecting fundamental changes in the attitudes, behavior practices and culture of Kenyans towards corruption.
This campaign has been on for some years now, and it was necessary at the time it was initiated under the time of the retired President Mike Kibaki, that the law alone was not enough to stop corruption. But behind corrupt practices is a culture and attitudes that were enshrined in our society. And this culture, these attitudes could only be taken away from people by sensitizing them about the challenges and the problems of corruption, by making people have the willingness to stop being corrupt or providing an avenue for corruption. And so that deficit within the law is what called into place a committee that was set up to spearhead campaign activities against corruption. So biblically or within our religious teachings, we are handling an evil. And that evil can only change when people by themselves individually make a decision not to commit the evil.
So at a personal level, what exactly do I need to do as a Kenyan?
You as a personal level, as a Kenyan, first and foremost, love your country. Have that goodwill of making sure that your country is one of the best, and you want to do the best for it. And the best thing one can do as a Kenyan is to support those systems that will make Kenya grow. And one of the things that we must do to bring about employment, to grow the economy we need, to live a life that satisfies us all together, is to shun corruption.
Tunasema kanyaga 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 kanyaga
evening, fellow Kenyans, and happy Madaraka Day. 51 years ago, we attained our political independence on the promise to bring development, fight disease, hunger, and poverty. But 51 years later, our greatest enemy remains corruption. The National Anti-Corruption Campaign Steering Committee brings you Moving the Masses with the sole intention of touching your hearts and minds that you may participate in the fight against corruption. The question is, are you touched? Are you moved? Our guest this evening is the chairman of the Anti-Corruption Campaign Steering Committee, who is also the Archbishop of the Anglican Church of Kenya, His Grace, Dr. Eliud Wabukala. Your Grace, welcome.
Thank you so much, Professor.
You've been at it for many years, from the pulpit, from the chair, but Kenyans appear to be unmoved and untouched. What are the new strategies that we must now embrace in the fight against corruption?
Thank you so much, Professor Lumumba, for taking us through the first episode and now this one. The National Anti-Corruption Campaign Steering Committee has devised a strategy of moving the masses as one way of allowing the people to participate in this campaign against corruption. Yes, we have been at it for long, but we still believe that Kenyans can be saved from corruption by taking the initiative by themselves individually. The rule of law has not helped to curb corruption, and therefore the campaign that is now staged here is aimed at each and every person participating and creating that culture and attitude of saying no to corruption. And so we welcome you to be part of us.
Your Grace, the concern, we have what we still call the new constitution at Article 10 is very good. It tells us these are the national values, that we have a duty as Kenyans to do that. But there are doubting Thomases out there saying, we have told Kenyans from the pulpit. I have heard you talk about and against it. I've heard members of your team talk about and against it. And Kenyans are saying, is this not all lip service that we Kenyans are irredeemably bad? Are we right in saying that? Or you think there is some light at the end of the tunnel? I hope it's not an oncoming train.
Well, I think for me I have a lot of hope that Kenyans can be able to do it. There was a day that we did it, immediately after the elections of the NAC government, the previous one. There was 1 week when the Kenyans said no to corruption. And actually, I saw them arrest policemen. That 1 week was a week of peace. We want to call upon Kenyans today that they have the will, they have the capacity as individuals to say no. I know we have been at it for long. There's a lot of skepticism. But I call upon us not to give up, because Kenya is a nation that is so, so vital to us. And so, Professor will continue to be at it. And I hope that many of them here will continue to join us and under the steering committee to make sure that we as individuals don't participate in corruption.
Your Grace, I know that your steering committee is present in different parts of the country, in the counties and in different areas. But the question is, do you, as the chairman and your members, feel that you are beginning to touch the minds and hearts not only of the so-called ordinary Kenyan, but the leadership? Do you think that something is beginning to happen that gives you hope, that makes you so confident?
Well, I think I go back to the time we started. When we began to talk about corruption, we were whispering about it. People in Kenya will not talk open about it. They will talk about chai and look behind before they could mention it. But the campaign that we have put across, and many other people who have participated, have demystified that. Now Kenyans talk about corruption openly. For us, that is good. We begin by accepting that we are corrupt and that we name the corrupt practices. We have done that. Now we have reached a point where we say, let us then have the next step, the will to say no to corruption. And that is going to be a mass movement for all of us as Kenyans, because if we don't do that, our economy will not grow. Our social structures will collapse, and that we are not ready to accept. And therefore, it's an invitation to each one of us to say, let us move together and create a culture that refuses corruption, that is not able to give or take. That's what we are aiming at.
But you see, your Grace people are saying
Yes.
that a few years ago, before the Constitution, there was only one pot from which they were eating.
Yeah.
Now there are 47.
Okay.
The question that is being asked is, with these 47 plus the other one at the National Center, what are your strategies as the Anti-Corruption Campaign Steering Committee? What are the specific things that you would want Kenyans listening out there and Kenyans in the studio and the leadership to do in order to help you and us in the fight against corruption?
Well, Professor, we have started today just to inform Kenyans that we have put on board several strategies. First is today when we tell Kenyans that we are coming. And now we have lined up episodes of personalities who will be coming to this studio every week to talk about corruption in their respective dockets. We are going to request the cabinet secretaries to come. We are going to bring in heads of various departments of government to come, and people will be able to hear how they are working on issues of corruption in their departments. But above it all, we have staged programs where we go to county governments. In fact, as we talk, we have visited almost 17. We have over 17 county steering committee groups, offices that we have opened. And the governors out there are asking us to go, help them create their strategies, empower their people so that they are able to sensitize their staff and the people in the counties against corruption. So we have a very elaborate strategy that is going to take us to every county, where we shall create what we call the county steering committees. We call them DACOCs in those days because we had districts, but now we shall open county offices. So we are going to move and devolve, because we know that corruption is also devolving. So,
Your Grace, I hear you.
Yes.
But as I tell you, there are many doubting Thomases, and they'll be saying, if there is anything that the corrupt love, is education.
Okay.
And I speak from experience. When you educate them, they are not worried. You speak about and against corruption, they are not worried. But when you begin to touch them, then they begin to fight, and the people also say he's a thief, but he is our thief. How will you deal with an environment where people think that the thieves are their thieves and they want to protect them? What are the strategies?
Well, our education is deep. It's going to touch your heart. You see your child is sick in the house, is dying, you go to hospital, there are no drugs. How do you feel when you come back home? You know, you want to go to school and there are no books for your children. You get a bicycle, you want to ride on a road and it's so rough because nobody has made the road. We want to talk to your heart and to your mind. It's not education just for the sake of education. We want to engage with each other, ask and give the real situations down there in the countryside, where you find somebody's dying in the house, there's no car to take him or her to hospital. Why? Because the big person somewhere took the money which could have made the roads. This is not about education alone. It's about you. It's about me. And so we shall talk to the heart of every Kenyan and then invite them to move together to avoid corruption. Because it's life.
Your Grace, on Thursday, I think last week, I listened to President Kenyatta during the National Prayer Breakfast saying,
Yes.
we are here, we are saying very nice things, saying powerful prayers. But I am concerned that once we say it here, we say it firmly and loudly, we do nothing about it. Do you sometimes hold the view that despite the best efforts and your best intention, the people remain untouched and unmoved, and that discourages you?
Well, even the prophets of old have had the same, but none has given up. Well, what we are doing here is that there is a strategy with our other arms of government which take the law to prosecute people, to try to look for the things they have stolen. But we are saying that before you reach there, why can't we warn you and say, don't reach that stage? Because that area is very tedious. It takes a lot of time, resources, and money. Is Kenya prepared to lose all this money instead of us preventing by taking the step to say no as a first precaution so that we avoid corruption? Friends, corruption is bad. African nations have fallen. Many places people have suffered, and they are suffering just because of corruption. And that's why this committee has put it upon itself to ensure they visit every village, just to tell people how serious corruption is, because it affects you.
Bishop, just for our Kiswahili listeners, you know there is a beautiful Kiswahili saying, sikio la kufa halisikii dawa.
Sawa, sawa.
Do you sometimes think that Kenya ni sikio la kufa, halisikii dawa, wanaambiwa hawaambiliki?
Naona una Kiswahili kigumu, lakini nitajaribu. Kweli Wakenya saa ingine wamekaa na wakafika mahali mpaka hawana ile imani na yale ambayo tunafanya, tuwe kule mahali pa kuabudu ama katika nafasi mbalimbali za serikali. Lakini nataka kuwahimiza ya kwamba juhudi za kukomesha ufisadi ni juhudi za kila mmoja wetu, kwa sababu ufisadi unaleta madhara makubwa sana. Nafikiria yule ambaye anasikiliza akiwa pale ama anaona sisi akiwa pale kijijini na pengine mtoto ni mgonjwa kwa nyumba, uende hospitali upate kwamba hakuna dawa huko. Unafikiria sasa uende wapi? Na hiyo dawa haiko kwa sababu ya ufisadi. Pengine una baisikeli yako ama motorcycle unataka ikupeleke kwa kliniki, lakini barabara ni mashimo peke yake. Unaposhindwa pale barabarani, shida ni kwamba mtu aliyepewa contract ya kujenga hiyo barabara alikula pesa. Hili ni jambo ambalo linashika wewe. Kwa hivyo tunaomba tusungumuze na kila mmoja wetu awe nasi katika hiki kipindi chetu cha Moving the Masses, kuelewana na kuchukua hatua ya kwanza ya kusema sitachukua hongo na tena sitapeana, kwa sababu iko mara mbili.
Ile askofu, kuna taasisi nyingi tu ambazo zinahusika katika mchakato mzima wa kupambana na ufisadi. Je, mna ushirikiano katika harakati hizo, kushirikiana ili muwe ni watu ambao mnafuata njia moja katika vita hivi?
Ya, tuko pamoja sana. Tuna ile commission ya corruption commission, na tuna wengine ambao tuko pamoja nao katika kutusaidia kama Law Society Reform, na wengine ambao siwezi kutaja wote. Sisi kila mmoja amechukua nafasi yake, hasa wale ambao wengine ambao tunasema ni wanafanya vizuri kwetu, ni kwamba kazi yao ni kushitaki na kushika na hata kuchukua mali. Na ikiwa watafanya kazi yao, watu wataumia sana, na ni vizuri wafanye hivyo ndio waache ufisadi. Lakini sisi tunakuja na kusema, je, kwa nini ufike pale? Tunaona kwamba hiyo hatua ni nzuri, lakini inachukua muda, inachukua pesa, kwa sababu hawa watu ambao wamechukua pesa ya wananchi wataweza kuwa na lawyers wale ambao wajuu sana na watawalipa. Sasa wewe Mkenya unapoteza pesa inapoenda kwa lawyers, na pili itachukua muda, pengine hiyo pesa hairudi. Kwa hivyo ndio tunaomba kwamba wewe mwenyewe kupitia kwa Anti-Corruption Campaign Steering Committee ukubali kushirikiana nasi ili tusaidie wenzetu, tuseme no, hatutaki corruption. Mtu akikuitisha ukatae. Sasa hivyo ndio tunaomba kama komiti hii, sisi wote wa Kenya, sisi wenyewe tuseme hatutaki hongo katika nchi yetu.
Askofu, ufisadi ni dhambi. Je, makanisa, mahekalu na misikiti yanahusishwa vipi katika vita? Na taasisi yenu National Anti-Corruption Steering Committee Campaign, mnachukua harakati zipi kuhakikisha kwamba makanisa, mahekalu na misikiti zinahusishwa katika kuhamasisha umma?
Asante. Tangu tuanze kampeni yetu, tunashirikiana na watu wote ambao wanaeneza neno la Mungu. Katika komiti yenyewe tuko na viongozi mbalimbali wa kidini. Tuna Waislamu, tuna Wahindu, tuna Wakristo, na wote ambao opinion leaders ambao wako katika nchi hii wako kwa hiyo komiti. na tumekuwa na seminars ambazo zimelenga pastors na viongozi wa dini mbalimbali kwa muda ambayo tumekuwa tukishiriki, na bado tunazidi kuwatumia hata kule mashinani. Wengi wao wako katika komiti zetu. Kwa hivyo tunashirikiana kusema kweli ufisadi ni dhambi. Hata maandiko matakatifu yametuonyesha sana kwamba ufisadi unafumba macho, unafanya macho ya kuona mazuri yaharibike, kwa sababu unaharibu ile ambayo tunasema justice. Kwa hivyo ufisadi ni dhambi, na sisi tukiwa watu ambao wengi sana ni watu wanaoenda msikitini ama kanisani kila siku, tuchukue hiyo hatua kuanzia hapo, ili tujaribu kuleta hali ya kutoka kwa ufisadi kutoka ndani ya maisha yetu.
Ushahidi unadhihirisha kwamba vita dhidi ya ufisadi hasa katika bara la Afrika huwa zinapiga hatua ikiwa viongozi wakuu wa serikali wanaongoza. Mfano ni nchi ya Botswana, mfano ni nchi ya Rwanda. Kamati yenu imeteuliwa na rais, na nina hakika mmekutana na rais, mnazungumzia swala hili. Kuna watu ambao wanamkosoa rais, wanasema ni vuguvugu, aonyeshi ari. Je, wewe unapozungumza na rais unashawishika ya kwamba jambo hili linamkera?
Asante sana. Tumekuwa na rais kweli, tumeongea na viongozi wa serikali mbalimbali na wanaona shida ya ufisadi. Hasa rais mwenyewe amekubali wakati fulani atakuja hata kukomishoni hii kipindi chetu, kwa sababu katika mipangilio yake vile alitueleza, ufisadi ni kitu ambacho anaona kitoke katika nchi ya Kenya. Sisi tumeongea na wale ambao ameteua wakubwa wa serikali, hasa wale ambao walikuwa kwa serikali iliyopita. Tumeongea na hao Commission of Police, tumekuwa kwa immigration, tumekuwa katika department karibu sote, Attorney General na wengine, ili kuonyesha ya kwamba waweke katika mipangilio yao ufisadi iwe jukumu moja ambalo wanashughulikia. Kwa hivyo ni kweli watu wanaweza kuwa na shauku kwamba pengine hawafanyi kazi, lakini ufisadi ni kitu ambacho kimeingia maishani mwa watu, na ni vyema sisi tushirikiane wote ili tuweze kuondoa. Serikali nafikiri ni vizuri tuwape nafasi na tuendelee kuwahimiza na tena kuwasaidia kuona kwamba wanapambana na ufisadi, wanaleta resources za kutosha katika kampeni hizi, ili tuweze kuwafundisha na kueleza wananchi wa Kenya juu ya ufisadi.
Kuna wengine ambao wanasema kizazi hiki chetu ni kizazi ambacho kilitoka Misri na ina umisri mwingi sana ndani yao, na kuwabadilisha itakuwa ni ngumu mno. Kwa hivyo tuangazie wale ambao tayari wako katika nchi ya ahadi, kizazi kipya. Je, kama kamati katika kuhamasisha vijana ambao wako shuleni, katika taasisi mbalimbali, ni hatua zipi na mikakati ipi ambayo mmeziweka ili kuhamasisha watu ambao ni vijana?
Asante Profesa. Kwanza tumeshashiriki hasa na wale wa university, hata tuna program tumefanya moja na Strathmore University, tumeshirikisha Kenya Methodist University, na tunaendelea kutafuta wanafunzi kutoka universities watusaidie. Pili, tuna pamoja na Commission ya Anti-Corruption, tunataka kutengeneza syllabus ambayo tunafikiri tuanze kufundisha habari ya ubaya wa ufisadi kuanzia standard 1, kwamba ishirikishwe katika mikakati ya elimu ya Kenya. Vile wamesema kweli, wale ambao ni wazee sana hawa ni kama mti ambao ukisukuma utavunjika, ndio tutauvunja.
Anasema samaki mkuja angali mbichi.
Lakini sasa tukianza na watoto hawa, ili tuendelee juu, tutakuwa na taifa ambalo lina watu ambao wana integrity, watakataa ufisadi.
Kweli kabisa, lakini kuna jambo moja ambalo pia linaathiri sana vita dhidi ya ufisadi, na ni ukabila. Na hili jambo linaibuka hasa wakati huu wa ugatuzi. Mtu akishtakiwa, watu wake, watu wa kabila lake wanaambiwa watu wetu wanamalizwa. Je, katika harakati zenu jambo hili mtalishughulikia namna gani? Jambo hili la ukabila na jinsi inavyochangia katika kuendeleza ufisadi.
Sasa Profesa, hapo unafikiri ni jukumu la Kenya. Tumekuwa na katiba yetu mpya ambayo sasa sio mpya, ni katiba ambayo inatumika. Na ukiangalia kipengele cha 10 ambayo inaongea juu ya values, national values. Nafikiri kama Wakenya tuangalie pale sana, kwa sababu national values zinatufundisha sisi kama wananchi tuwe watu ambao wana jukumu la kulinda nchi yetu. Patriotism, to be patriotic, yani watu ambao wakiona Kenya ni nyumbani, sio kabila lako. Kwa hivyo kama committee sisi tutatumia kipengele hicho. Hata tumeanza sasa mkakati wa kufundisha juu ya ile nafasi ya integrity, national values ambazo ziko katika katiba yetu. Hii nafikiri ni jukumu la komiti hii, na si komiti hii peke yake, Wakenya wote to internalize hayo maneno, kuona kwamba katiba inasema tuwe watu ambao tuko na ile hali ya kuwa Wakenya, kujivunia tuwe na nchi yetu. Kwa hivyo sisi tumeweka mikakati ya kufundisha juu ya values za nchi yetu, na nafikiri kuanzia hapo pengine tutaweza kusema ndio, sio kabila ambayo ni nchi. Kenya ni kubwa kushinda kabila lako.
Katika toleo la leo la gazeti la Sunday Nation, mwandishi mmoja kwa jina Sani Bindra ameandika akisema tatizo la Kenya ni wafuasi wabaya, si viongozi wabaya. Na kile ambacho anakizungumzia ni ya kwamba Wakenya wenyewe ambao tunawaita wananchi hawana uzalendo, na wakipata nafasi wanawachagua viongozi ambao hawana maadili. Je, mtawahamasishaje Wakenya hawa ambao ni wazalendo, wadogo, wapigaji kura, wachague na watambue ya kwamba kitu ambacho umekifanya kitakuathiri wewe, hasa katika mambo ya uchaguzi?
Asante. Kusema kweli, tunachagua viongozi, na saa ingine viongozi naochagua ni sisi wenyewe, kwa sababu kiongozi hata kuwa juu sana ya wale ambao wanamchagua. Na wale ambao mnaelewa, wachache ambao mnaelewa hatari ya kutafuta viongozi ambao watafika ile hali ya kuongoza na maadili mema, ni vizuri tuanze polepole vile tunaanza hivi kufundishana. Haitachukua muda mfupi, lakini ingawaje itachukua muda mrefu, tuanze kuwafundisha watoto wetu, wapiga kura wote wajue ya kwamba ukichagua mtu ambaye ni mfisadi, ambaye hana maadili mema, wewe mwenyewe ndio utaumia. Na hii ni mwendo ambaye sisi kama campaign tumeanza, na tunawaita Kenyans wengine wote kwa hii program yetu ya Moving the Masses, tuendelee kuhamasisha watu wetu juu ya maadili mema.
Mifano inayotoka katika mataifa ambayo yamefaulu katika vita dhidi ya ufisadi hapa barani, na nimetaja Botswana, nimetaja Rwanda, tena nitaje Mauritius, ni ya kwamba serikali imewapa fedha, imezipa fedha taasisi ili kuhakikisha kwamba hawalalamiki ukosefu wa fedha. Je, kamati yenu ina fedha za kutosha kutembea katika pembe zote za Kenya ili msilalamike ya kwamba hamna posho?
Okay, Professor, kama ungekuwa nazo ningeomba unipe sahihi. Hiyo kweli ni shida ambayo pengine kwa ajili ya uchumi wa nchi hawana pesa. Hii kamati haina fedha hata kidogo ya kutosha ili tutembee kila mahali. Ingawaje hawa wanajitoa kufanya hiyo kazi kwa kile kidogo ambacho wamepata. Tunafanya ile mnaitwa improvisation mpaka tufanye hiyo, tupate hiyo. Lakini kama Kenya ikitaka kutoa ufisadi, ndio lazima wainvest. Kwa hiyo kwa muda mfupi, ili zote tushirikiane na tuone kwamba ufisadi ni mbaya, in the long run itakuwa tumesave pesa. Lakini kwa sasa kama taasisi zingine, hii yetu haina fedha ya kutosha.
Wakenya wenzangu, tuko katika harakati za kuangalia janga hili la ufisadi, na kile ambacho anakiangazia Askofu Daktari Eliud Wabukala ni ya kwamba sisi Wakenya tuna jukumu la kizalendo kuhakikisha ya kwamba tumejitolea mhanga kuipiga vita ufisadi. Fellow Kenyans, His Grace the Archbishop is reminding us that the fight against corruption is a fight that all of us Kenyans must participate in. The question is, on this 51st birthday of the nation of Kenya, if you search your heart and mind, do you find the ghosts of corruption resident there? And are you going to exorcise them? will come again with moving the masses.
Nyuma kielimu na afya juu yako we ufisadi ni adui mkubwa tunasema kanyaga 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 simama simama songa songa mbele sisi sote simama sema tosha.
Maliza this pressing issue bwana. My boss says kitu yako iko as agreed.
How come I never get one of these?
Nyinyi vijana wa siku hizi, cutting corners will run you into trouble.
Yahoo! This is our day, boss. Leo tumeangukia.
Do not give a thought to this, Mshenzi. This is against the rule of law. You cannot triple the cost.
Kitu gani? Boss, did you ask for the money? Did you? Look at it this way. You have to pay school fees, mortgage, chama, the holiday you have been promising your family.
Think about it. How different will you be from that immigration officer who allows illegal immigrants in our country? Some Al-Shabaabs, they end up killing innocent of civilians in terror attacks. Or that cop who looks the other way on our roads leading to accidents. But this is different. It's not like that. This is different. Oh, sorry.
Now you are talking. Wachana wewe unajifanya mugwana. You are not like those corrupt border people or the traffic police officers. This is you and 10 million.
Corruption won't pay in the long run. Thinking about those people you'll save is having human dignity. Thinking about our country is being patriotic.
Boss, think about it. Do you really want to let this golden opportunity pass?
This is about your values. Do the Ungwana thing.
And lose 10 million. Boss, that will be stupid.
Rise up to your true human spirit. Do the right thing.
Just think about it. Isn't engaging in acts of corruption ushenzi? Fighting corruption, my responsibility. Fighting corruption is uungwana.
KBC Channel 1, Kenya's watching.
I am happy to invite you to watch the World Cup for the whole month of June on your national broadcaster, KBC Channel 1. This will be a moment that you as a Kenyan will be grateful and will be happy to see your broadcaster bringing you the football matches live in your house, in your homestead, wherever you will be. Join me to walk this path of watching KBC Channel 1 throughout the whole of the World Cup and even after, because KBC is transforming for the good of the Kenyan.
Mware, let me tell you, if you want to get the right man, you're gonna put on makeup like me.
Are you sure?
Don't I look beauty?
Seriously, you don't need all that. Simply bonyeza *699*1# and get hooked to the guy of your dreams.
Taking pride in constructing tomorrow's skylines. Adding strength to Kenya's landmarks. Presenting the power for specialized constructions. cementing the nation's future. Simba Cement, the strength and pride of Kenya.
All roads lead to Brazil for the FIFA World Cup 2014. Don't be left behind. KBC is giving away fantastic prizes and taking you to Brazil to watch the games live. To participate, SMS your name to 20036 now and stand a chance to win big. We are giving away cash prizes of 5,000 Kenya shillings to 5 winners every day. Airtime worth 1,000 to 5 winners daily. Original World Cup merchandise including jerseys, footballs are also up for grabs. 2 flat screen TVs every week for 2 lucky winners. And a grand prize of a trip to Brazil for 1 lucky winner to watch the games live. SMS your name to 20036 now and stand a chance of walking away with these great prizes. The more you SMS, the higher your chances of winning. Terms and conditions apply.
We've got game.
KBC Channel 1, Kenya's watching.
Juu yako we ufisadi, ni adui mkubwa. Tunasema kanyaga, 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 kanyaga.
Kenyans who are viewing and listening to Moving the Masses, we want to remind you, this is not a talk show. This is serious business. The National Anti-Corruption Campaign Steering Committee intends to touch your minds and hearts. And our guest this evening is His Grace Dr. Eliud Wabukala, who is the chairman of the Anti-Corruption Steering Committee and also the Archbishop of the Anglican Church of Kenya. He has been telling us about the activities and what we must do as Kenyans to fight corruption. Your Grace, before we go to the audience and involve them, the question that Kenyans ask on a daily basis is what has been the impact of corruption? We talk about it, we talk against it, but sometimes it is as if they don't quite appreciate. Ni kama hekaya za Bunwasi. Have you done a study and understood the impact of corruption and why we should fight it?
This committee has undertaken various studies at all levels, trying to find out the impact of corruption, the effects of corruption in Kenya, and they are immense. Kenyans are aware of those mega issues like Anglo leasing and the rest, but there are several corruption-related issues in this country that bring problems every day. The deaths on the roads that we experience is just because of corruption, and people are dying daily on our roads. Even the insecurity problems, this comes because of our corruption, where our borders are not well guarded, where people are given money to allow any kind of person to perpetuate terrorism, for example. So the effects that corruption has brought to this nation are very clear. We have made all the studies, and that's why this committee is going outside there to educate people the impact. We have so far visited 27 counties and are on the way to many others. We have also partnered with almost 7 universities to have them help us in terms of making this information about the magnitude of corruption, effects of corruption in our country. And so we are dealing, as you have said rightly, with something that is life and death to this nation.
Thank you very much, Your Grace. We have you here. You are Kenyans, you listen. Some of you are members of the steering committee. We want practical examples. What must we do? We must, as His Grace says, step out of the complaint mode. We are a complaining nation. What is it that we must do to move the agenda forward, to make this nation realize our potential? Let us hear from you so that fellow Kenyans can benefit from your thoughts. We, of course, don't claim monopoly of knowledge. We just have ideas and suggestions. Who will break the ice from the audience present in this assembly this evening? Pastor Omondi. Reverend.
Omondi from the National Campaign Steering Committee. I think when we've gone around with His Grace, the Archbishop, around the country, most Kenyans are asking that we really bring in the big fish. And this government has shown some indication that they are going that direction. When, for example, we saw somebody from Central Bank, people, when we met with His Excellency, he said he will clean his office. So I believe that the leadership is serious about fighting corruption. But Kenyans are waiting for the big names to be actually taken to court. And I'm hoping the AG is listening to this, because that's what Kenyans are waiting for.
Thank you. Kenyans want some drama and some blood. But is that the solution? Because I think that 100 rats are much more dangerous than one lion. Or what do you think? Introduce yourself as you share your thoughts. Let's have the good lady, please. And then we come to you, Mark Korir.
Good evening.
If you stood up, your fellow Kenyans would see you a lot more clearly at home.
Good evening. My name is Sheila Masinde from Transparency International. I think we need to not just touch people, but moving the masses is very important, and here we need action. And to further empower Kenyans, what we also need to look at is our legislation. For a long time, we have been fighting for legislation such as access to information. We have Article 35 in the Constitution, which gives Kenyans the right to know information that affects them, information that is held by public authorities. Unfortunately, up to now, 4 years now since we adopted the new Constitution, we don't have an access to information law. But if we have this kind of law, then Kenyans will be able to monitor what is happening, if, for instance, now at the counties, how their funds are being used. And in this way, they'll be able to even act stronger against corruption. If we really want to move Kenyans, we also have to really take care of such legislation. Another legislation that we also have to ensure that we have is that will enable them to participate in public affairs. We also need a public participation law. If we have such laws, then we'll just move Kenyans from just talking about corruption, but actually acting, because they'll be able to participate. So maybe Your Grace, you can tell us what the committee is also doing in terms of trying to ensure that some of this legislation is passed.
Sheila, before you sit down, Transparency International ranks us and ranks countries. How badly are we doing as a country?
Well, in 2013, we were ranked 136 out of 177 countries, with a score of 27 out of 100. This is actually a very poor score. But if you look at the ranking of Kenya over the past couple of years, it has remained the same, even the score, meaning that we have been stagnating in the fight against corruption, despite all the efforts by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, efforts by the committee. So it means that our fight against corruption is stagnating, so we need fresh impetus, we need a fresh approach. So we really have to stop just talking about it, but actually moving people.
We hear you.
Yes.
Kenyans, you hear Sheila, number 136 out of 170, hiyo ni D. Hiyo tunafanya vibaya sana. Mark Korir.
I'm Mark Korir from Association of Citizens Against Corruption. Mine is only, I want to urge the committee to go on the part of legislation. You realize that the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission doesn't have prosecutorial powers. Yet our constitution envisages a situation where Parliament can actually give power to such a commissions to prosecute. My worry has been that without those prosecutorial powers, you realize that they might have concrete evidence, but the question of going through the DPP and what have you, as a Reverend has said, through the Attorney General and what have you, has actually bogged down the war on corruption. Another question I wanted to ask is that you realize that Kenyans, as we've seen the way we have been ranked, there is a problem with our what we call our culture, our political culture, and Article 6 of our Constitution. What are we going to do? Because most of those who have amassed wealth corruptly are the ones actually taking charge of the society. How are we going to put them to task so that when they are seeking for clearance, they are not cleared? So that they don't use the same wealth they obtained illegally to go and campaign and eventually come and take charge, you realize that now even the production of legislations in parliament, you realize that without good quality leadership, as envisaged in Article 10, we will be having leaders who cannot produce good legislations that is going to drive this country. What is the committee doing about it so that we can have a situation where the country has the best leaders, has the best mechanisms of fighting corruption?
We hear you, Mark. Let's come to Your Grace. Your Grace, what you hear from Sheila from Transparency and Mark Korir from the Association of Citizens Against Corruption is the quality of the laws that we have. And experience has shown in Nigeria, in South Africa, in Mauritius, in Botswana, many countries, Hong Kong, that you need good laws that make it easy in the fight against corruption. So what, beyond the work that you are you doing in that area, talking to parliamentarians and other bodies?
Thank you so much, and thank you for those questions. First, I want to thank you for cooperating with us. We are working closely with Transparency International. We want to thank you and all those bodies. Now, when we started this fight against corruption, there were barely regulations that were helping us. One of the things that we had to struggle with is to talk to people who make policies for procedures that were involved in procuring services to Kenyans. For example, to get a passport, those days was a difficult job. This committee has sat with people who framed those regulations so many times, particularly in the immigration department. Until today, we are finding that passports can now be issued a little quicker, although we are not yet satisfied. We have worked on that, not in camera, I mean out of public like this, but in camera, visited the people who do this work. And what you used to call the 100-day, is it contracting? Yes. Where people say that in 100 days, services must be. We contribute to that quite a lot. I think now we have to move on to seek for legislation that can be helpful to curb corruption and to make sure that corruption is not allowed. And I hear what you are saying. I think together we shall continue to involve us as people to demand for that legislation so that we move a little higher in the process of returning what people have taken and also stopping those who are looting.
Yeah. Your Grace, I hear you. Sometimes when you go out to Kenyans, watu ambao ni wadogo, wananchi wanaitwa wa kawaida, I fear sometimes that they'll tell you, wacha kuja kwetu askofu. Wezi umewawacha Nairobi. Wako kwa taasisi mbalimbali. So the question they would be asking, Your Grace and your committee, have you had conversations with Parliament? Have you had conversation with the judiciary? Have you had conversation with IEBC and all these bodies? Then you come to us.
Well, tumeulizwa maswali hayo. Siku moja tulikuwa upande, nafikiri wa Kwale, tumekuwa kila mahali. Wanatuuliza, nyinyi mmewacha ufisadi Nairobi, mnakuja hapa nini? Tukasema ndio, tumewacha Nairobi lakini tunakuja tushikamane na nyinyi ili tuende Nairobi tuutoe. Kwa hivyo sisi tutaendelea kushirikiana na wananchi, kwa sababu hawa wananchi ndio wanachagua wale watu ambao wanaenda Nairobi. Na ikiwa hapa chini mnachagua mtu mnajua kweli ni mfisadi, anapokwenda Nairobi anakuwa mgumu sana kwa sisi kujaribu kutoa ufisadi. Kwa hivyo sisi bado tutazidi kurudi pale mashinani ili tueleze wananchi hapo wajue ya kwamba tuendelee kutafuta wale ambao ni watu wazuri. Tukipeleka huko Nairobi wataleta maendeleo mazuri.
Asante Askofu. Kuna Waswahili wanasema nyani haoni kundule. Now there is a sense sometimes in which the public thinks sisi si wafisadi, we are not the corrupt ones. Now that you want to talk to Kenyans, Kamla, what is the contribution that the ordinary person must make in this fight to help you?
Mr. Lumba, sorry I'm sitting.
Yes, you are in front so we'll see you.
What bothers me is, hold on, the people who are corrupt don't have to be corrupt. Because you see, the corruption is at a level where people, most of the corrupt people are at the top level. The man in the street is not corrupt. He is the one who needs to be corrupt. but he's not corrupt. So what is the solution to that? How are we going to stop it? Because whatever corruption is happening at a big level is happening from top, not from the bottom. Now, the Wananchi has a right to ask, how is it that these people who are loaded are still being so corrupt? I want an answer to that also. Why?
I hear you, Kamla. I want to come to the audience. You are the voters. When the big fish that Reverend Omondi is talking about is arrested, it is you who say, ni muizi lakini ni muizi wetu. How do you respond to that? The audience here and at home. Engineer?
Muizi wetu.
Thank you, Professor. What is happening, the committee has tried a lot of things, and we are doing a lot of things actually. When we went to counties to make sure the county governments are able to do everything with the people being informed what is going on. Because there is a lot of money going for CDF, for county governments. Most of the people, you know, they confuse the projects being done, who is doing this and who is doing that. And this committee right now, we know if you go to calculate the kind of money which is being given by that small man you are saying is a small man down there, is much, much more than what you think of Anglo-Leasing. In every occasion, if you have to go and see the chief and you are buying a pen, say it's even 20 shillings for a location, those who are spending so much money. I can tell you the way corruption is done by these small men. Nobody is asking them money.
Engineer, will come back to you. Fellow Kenyans, moving the masses is alive and well. We are hearing contribution from the studio audience, but those of you who are viewing and listening, the question is, the fight must be mounted by all of us. Remember, Waswahili wanasema mtego wa panya uingia waliomo na wasiokwemo. We'll be back in a few minutes to touch your hearts and minds courtesy of the National Anti-Corruption Campaign Steering Committee. Shortly, we will be back.
Je, umewahi jiuliza ikiwa hakungekuwa na ufisadi nchini, tungekuwa na manufaa gani? Hebu nikupe taswira kamili. Kila mwaka nchi yetu hupoteza karibu bilioni 400 kutokana na ufisadi. Je, waelewa bilioni 400 ni pesa ngapi? Inamaanisha 4, 0, 0 na nyingine na nyingine tena nyingine hadi jumla ya 11. Ikiwa pesa hizo zingetumika kujenga barabara, tungekuwa na uwezo wa kujenga barabara 14 za kiwango cha Thika Road kote nchini. Na kama zingetumika kujenga hospitali sawa na Mama Lucy Hospital, tungejenga hospitali 700, kumaanisha kila kaunti ingekuwa na hospitali 14. Na kama hizi pesa zingetumika kuwajengea nyumba wasiokuwa na makao, tungejenga nyumba za vyumba vya kulala 3 kuwapa makao familia 200,000. Usalama ungeimarishwa kwa kuwaajiri askari kutokana na hizi pesa. Pesa hizi zaweza kununua unga wa sima pakiti bilioni 3.5 ambazo zina uwezo wa kuwalisha watu wote nchini kwa miezi 6. Tungeweza kununua ng'ombe milioni 3 wa maziwa na milioni 8 wa kuchinjwa kwa nyama, na kuku milioni 800 kumpa kila mtu kuku 20 nchini. Hebu fikiria, si ni ushenzi kuwa na ufahamu huu kisha kuendelea na ufisadi?
Kupigana na ufisadi, jukumu langu. Kupigana na ufisadi ni uungwana. Ujumbe huu umeletwa kwako kwa hisani ya The National Anti-Corruption Steering Committee ikishirikiana na Uungwana Institute.
The great Mahatma Gandhi said, there is enough for everybody's needs, but not enough for anybody's greed. The Anti-Corruption Campaign Steering Committee, through moving the masses, seeks to speak to your heart and mind. And before the break, the good engineer was telling us what happens on the ground. Briefly, engineer, can you conclude that?
Yes, I want to finish what I was saying. The counties we have visited them because here in our own surveys which we have done, that small man you are saying is small man. He is spending so much money on corruption. And this money they give without being asked. If he visits our office, he doesn't go empty-handed. And that is why we wanted to stop from. If you go to calculate the kind of money that is being used in every location in this country, in a division, then you come to the sub-county, it is so much. So the question, and this is why this committee is there, we are asking you, who has asked you for corruption? Before even you are asked, you are giving. When you go to greet someone, you want to pay, even before you greet. This is what we want to do.
We hear you, engineer.
Yes.
We hear you. Your Grace, as we move toward the conclusion of this program, I hear you that there's a sense in which sometimes we abuse good practices. Mkono mtupu haulambwi. So they bring it so they don't have mikono mtupu. As we conclude this inaugural program, what is the message that you are giving to the Kenyans who are viewing and listening on the next phase of the fight against corruption?
Thank you so much, Professor. I think our message is that as we turn 51 as a nation, today we are 51. We are mature now, and therefore our message as the committee is to ask all of us Kenyans to start afresh, that we have a new beginning, and this beginning is a resolution that all of us want to be involved in the fight against corruption. So the National Anti-Corruption Campaign Steering Committee is now appealing to all the masses to take the first step. We invite you in your very limited capacity to do something. Tunakuomba wewe mwananchi wa kawaida, endelea kutusaidia kwa sababu sasa miaka 51 tumefika, wacha tuanze upya. Na tuwe watu ambao tunasema hatutaki ufisadi. Miaka ingine 50 inayokuja, taifa hili itakuwa taifa kubwa.
Asante sana, Your Grace. Mmemsikia askofu akituambia katika kuadhimisha miaka 50 tangu tujinyakulia uhuru wa kisiasa, lazima tuwe na mwamko mpya, tuanze na ari mpya, nguvu mpya na kauli mpya ili tuipige janga hili la ufisadi. Wiki ijayo tutakuwa na spika wa seneti Mheshimiwa Ekwe Ethuro ili atueleze je, ni kitu kipi kinafanyika baina ya wabunge. Nawe pia tukimalizia, kumbuka ya kwamba sote lazima tushirikiane katika vita dhidi ya ufisadi. Jambo hili ni jambo ambalo linatuathiri sote, kwa hivyo tuna jukumu la kizalendo kuhakikisha ya kwamba tumehusika bila kungoja tuhusishwe. Fellow countrymen, 51 years after independence, we cannot allow Kenya to be great in prospect. We are the largest economy in East Africa. We can be better. We can be better than Korea. We can be better than Singapore. But something stands in our way: corruption. The National Anti-Corruption Campaign Steering Committee wants you to be involved. They want you to be moved. We meet again next week. We hope that this small dose has started the process of changing your minds and hearts. God bless you. Good evening.
Ufisadi, ni adui mkubwa, tunasema